little confession, I am generally an AI optimist. I think that we've heard a lot of extraordinary potential in a variety of industries, everything from picking blueberries to building jetcraft engines. When I think about AI and marketing, I am filled with dread. I am not looking forward to this. I can see it starting to unfold now. Tell me, is there any good news here? Tell me what's happening, and tell me, am I going to be deluged by artificially generated, completely customized, super targeted messaging for the rest of my life?
You will probably be deluged by a bunch of automated spam. Luckily, you'll probably also have an autonomous agent that helps you filter through it. And so there'll be this continuing chess game between the spammers and the spammed. What people aren't really realizing, though, is there'll be an entirely separate set of SEO spam going on to try to manipulate Google's results. And I've been lucky enough to be involved in SEO since before Google was founded. So a fun flashback for everybody will be, who was voting age in 2004? Anybody in here still? So do you remember what showed up at the top of Google when you Googled miserable failure during the election? Well, George W. Bush's bio page on whitehouse.gov. And that was because people, for fun, were manipulating the results. And SEO teams in-house and at agencies have been trying to manipulate Google and Bing, mainly Google's results, for ages. That has unique implications from an AI perspective. Because if you think about how an LLM works, it ingests all the information it can find out there by spidering the open web. And then it makes decisions about what to serve up when a person asks the AI a question. And by dumping AI-generated content onto the web, which may or may not be identified properly as AI-generated content, you can manipulate the results, right? And so there will be situations where obviously you can use it for good. You can try to future-proof your SEO to make sure that you're more likely to be listed as the #1 hotel in Orlando when someone asks Bard or Claude or ChatGPT, or it could be used for nefarious purposes. So there's going to be some really interesting stuff going on in the next couple of years.
I believe that is probably happening now.
For sure.
And but I mean, the SEO game has been a cat and mouse game for years.
For sure.
Google's pretty good at catching up quickly and shutting things down. And I suspect they'll be able to do that eventually. Like they'll be able to see these, a lot of the spam sites and a couple of different ways of SEO optimization have already gone because Google just corrects around it. Do you think that's going to be a long-term problem?
I think, again, the cat and mouse game will continue. More and more dev cycles are going to have to be used on both sides, right? Because now the sort of more sophisticated SEO spammers are not just using a single AI to generate content. They're actually using several AIs to generate and then re-synopsize the content. Then they're putting it through a second AI to introduce errors on purpose so that it looks more human, right? So that it can't pass, it sort of passes the sniff test. So I don't know who's going to win at different stages of the battle. There certainly have been situations where the spammers have won in your email inbox or your SMS inbox or your Google search result at times.
I think the even more interesting point, which I think is implicit in what you're saying, is that a lot of the AI models are being trained on these large data sets that are themselves structured and informed by SEO optimization, that the priorities that Google's already set forth about what's an authoritative site, what should be preferenced over other pieces of content. So if you start from that, you're just replicating a lot of the same biases that it would be in the algorithm all by itself.
Absolutely. I didn't ask, but I'm guessing that Claude and Bard might have some interesting thoughts on whether ivermectin is good for certain things. And so how do you know what is truth to use to inform the LLM? And the hallucinations are pretty funny. I mean, I found a hallucination relating to some litigation with my firm and a company called Overture, and they got it. Both Claude and Bard got it completely wrong. As a matter of fact, I wish that what they said happened actually happened.
So, I feel like when it comes to CRM and marketing solutions, they've been the companies and the tools that have adapted to AI the fastest in a lot of ways. They've been marketing AI tools and automation. Marketing automation is not a new concept. This is just going to sort of supercharge a lot of those existing trends. Can you talk about how companies are using AI right now to create automated marketing messages?
Yeah, and a lot of them, the better ones, are sort of thinking about transparency and permission in a way that they don't freak you out when they send you hyper-personalized messages, because especially if you have a really robust first-party database, you can send a hyper-personalized message. But just because you know something about the individual doesn't necessarily mean you should transmit it in a hyper-personalized message. But it is really useful from a competitive intelligence perspective, and it's useful from a messaging perspective, and creating good segments and treating those segments differently. Also, within the publishing world of which you live and breathe, there's a huge push among publishers and broadcasters to develop their own first-party data, because it's harder and harder for them to mesh first and third-party data together for the purposes of better ad targeting. So that's happening in parallel.
So we are, for better or worse, heading into another election cycle. We've seen how how social media has been manipulated in terms of elections and the type of messaging that goes out there. And, you know, the Trump campaign has bragged about, and I mean, it was an amazing story about how many ad messages they were creating. It was thousands, tens of thousands, micro-targeted ads. I imagine we're going to see more of that, both on social media, on the open web. How does that change now that we have these AI tools to sort of create all of these new customized messages?
It could be really dangerous, because generally, when the anti-spamming laws were passed, they exempted PACs and nonprofits, in particular PACs, from the regulation. And so, you know, whereas you know, Worth magazine can't really spam the crap out of an SMS inbox, PACs and political parties can. And plus, you know, the level of transparency and knowing who's exactly sending you that message is not always clear. So I think we could end up with a multiple of touch points and an inundation of targeting. But interestingly, regulators and other folks and the press won't necessarily always see it, because the level of precision is so high that, you know, you can take a zip +4 and just inundate people in that zip +4, because that zip +4, due to all the gerrymandering,
a zip code.
Yeah, zip code +4, like down below the regular zip code, down to the +4, and say, well, just this city block, we're going to inundate with messaging. And that means you could end up influencing an election, and no one even knows how it was influenced.
Yeah, I think that was the thing. I watched the 60 Minutes episode, Brad Parscale, where he talks about openly, like, this is what we did. I had no idea. I don't think anyone in the mainstream press had any idea, because nobody in New York City was being targeted.
Right.
They were going after districts, and you just never saw that in any of your feeds because you weren't the target audience. And therefore, it never became a topic of debate, and no one saw it happening. And I think it's very likely we're going to see that again, operating at scale. Is there anything that individual consumers can do to sort of protect themselves? I mean, nothing's really being labeled at this point. There are not a lot of regulations. Like, how do we navigate this landscape with all these? They're not even deep fakes. They're just fakes.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be trust but verify. Now it's don't trust and verify, right? So it's really gotten to the point where, you know, even if you think it passes the sniff test, you know, check it out. I mean, and the level of phishing sophistication has also gone through the roof. And when you start to think about, you know, the ability to deep fake people's voices and such, you know, I've done 60 podcasts. So you could easily deep fake my voice and call my wife and tell her whatever you wanted to, and I could get in big trouble for things that I didn't do.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time. All the time. But I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, we're talking about deep fakes. We're talking about theft and fraud. This is all like on a spectrum of marketing. There's like permissions-based marketing that plays by the rules, and there's just trying to steer people towards an outcome that you want. And the tool set is the same, but there's obviously an ethical spectrum along there. And right now, it's really the Wild West. Like, there's not a lot of political advertisements are disclosed. This is paid for by this campaign. But I mean, it seems so antiquated when you see them on TV, when the same ads are running all over our feeds, the same videos, as original content with no disclosures and no ability to understand it. Does the government need to have more rules in this? I mean, I know you're a marketer by training and by trade. Like, you don't want the government telling you what to do, but like, it seems like we need more guidelines here.
Well, interestingly, there are a lot of rules with regards to truth in advertising and such. It's an enforcement issue, right? And the bigger the brand, the more likely they are to be following the rules. And the scrappier the brand or startup or entity of any kind, their incentive is to cheat, right? And see what they can get away with and push the envelope and push the boundaries. Because, if they just started the corporation 4 days ago, or there is no corporation, what's their downside, right? So, and it's sort of like speeding, right? The faster you speed down the highway, the quicker you get to the other destination, but the penalties go up the faster you speed. So, a Microsoft or KPMG is like, I'll do 5 miles over the speed limit. That's my comfort level. And then, you get some kid in a Lambo, willing to do a lot higher speed and take a lot more risks.
Yeah, I think one of the differences too is that there's a lot of these organizations, it could be individuals taking advantage of these tools with very little liability, because they're, in companies that form just for the election cycle, they're not going to be here in 6 months. So they're not worried about any kind of liability. Companies, I think, are almost the most trustworthy because they're held to account. But I mean, let's just say for companies that are playing by the rules, what new avenues is this going to open up, and what would you recommend they explore in terms of their own marketing communication with their customers?
Yeah, I would bucket it into all the CRM-ish kind of things that they can do with their existing data sets. There's some sophisticated modeling that is now applicable with regards to customizing and messaging. But I think what people haven't realized is how powerful using AI is for competitive intelligence and understanding what your competitors are doing and looking for white space where they may be doing something that's working really well from a messaging or content perspective, and then saying, oh, wow, we didn't realize that by answering this question about how to get these kinds of stains out, there's an entire audience that would love to have that information. And so you can apply AI to that and find the holes in your own content strategies and holes in your overall marketing strategy.
Yeah. Kevin, that's great. I hope you stick around for the town hall, because I'm sure the audience is going to have a lot of questions for you about how to find those holes, how to plug those holes. But it's great talking to you as always. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, likewise. Appreciate it.
Thank you.